Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Open Mic here on my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea. I'm going to be your host today. Now, every day on the John Campea Show in the mornings, we save some time for some open mic questions. But here on Open Mic, that's all we do is just all open questions all the time. Now, for those of you guys who watch the show regularly, you might be looking at it and saying, hey, today's show isn't in HD. No, I've been having some struggles. You know, about a week and a half ago, I had some major issues with my internet service. The last couple of days, I've had them again. So I decided to try to stream at a much lower bit rate today, just to make sure that we get a show going and that everything, so we can at least do a show, even if the quality isn't the best at the moment. So anyway, so forgive me for that. But anyway, with all that out of the way, let's dive right into the live questions. And the live questions today start off with Luke1234, who writes, should they remake Battlefield Earth? I don't think so. I mean, you're honestly talking about one of the legendarily worst movies in the history of cinema ever made. I call it, I have my unholy trinity. My three worst big wide release Hollywood produced films of all time. And in no particular order, they are Battlefield Earth, Highlander 2: The Quickening, and Catwoman. To me, these are the three absolute worst major wide release Hollywood produced films. Now, I'm sure we can point to 1,000 little indie films that were 10 times worse, but I'm saying for major Hollywood releases, three worst films of all time. There's just too much of a stigma attached to that thing now. I really don't see. Now, look, it's tough to say ever, because who knows, in 25 years, maybe when most people have forgotten about Battlefield Earth, maybe then take a shot at it again. But as far as any time in the near future, nah, they should just leave that one alone. Ben Heuser writes, about less than a month away, Venom finally releases. Hard to believe as the days draw closer, the more hype I get to see my all-time favorite Marvel anti-hero used right on the big screen. Still nervous. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm nervous too. Look, I believe this is going to be a good film, but I'm nervous too. For sure. Sony has made some marvelous comic book movies, but they've also made some stinkers. Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then they made some all-time great ones. Spider-Man 2, the first Amazing Spider-Man. They made some great ones, they made some poor ones. I like the look of Venom so far. They've clearly got some great people in front of the camera, and they got some great people behind the camera. So there are some reasons there to be optimistic. But also, hey, you'd have to be naive to not acknowledge that there's reason to be nervous too. So, yeah, man, I'm very excited about it. Fingers crossed. I mean, look, we should all be hoping that this movie is awesome and that it does well. Because if this movie is awesome and does well, not only does that mean we have a brand new high-quality comic book movie franchise, but it means Sony doesn't have to worry about taking Spider-Man back from the MCU. If Sony can make this movie a success, say, hey, we started off a new successful comic book shared universe and we didn't need Spider-Man to do it. We can leave Spider-Man over at the MCU. That is what we should all be hoping for. What we do not want to have happen is for Venom to tank and then have Sony go, well, I guess if we're going to have a successful film franchises, we got to bring Spider-Man back over from the MCU. I like Spider-Man where he is. I think they're making great movies in partnership with Sony and Marvel. They're making great Spider-Man movies there. I want him to stay there for now. And let's hope that this Venom film really takes off. Let's hope the Venom film takes off and is successful. Luke1234 writes, do you think in a few years that buying DVDs or physical media in general will become a novelty collector's item? Oh, yes. Actually, it's starting to become that already. It's starting to become that already. There are already many people like me who I haven't bought Blu-rays or DVDs in ages. You know, it's coming to streaming. I want to watch this movie right now. Well, I could get in the car, drive over to Best Buy, look for it, try to buy it, purchase the thing, and drive back home. Or I can just click on my Roku and go buy the movie and have it right there, streaming right away. Then I can watch it on my phone, I can watch it on my tablet, I can watch it on my computer, I can watch it on my TV here. Heck, I can watch it on my parents' TV when I go visit them in Canada. I mean, it's already, that trend is already starting. You know, me and Robert Meyer Burnett were talking about this, and Robert Meyer Burnett is a big fan of physical media, but even he acknowledges physical media is not long for this world, my friends. So yes, it is. It's already becoming a little bit of a collector's item, kind of. So yeah, I mean, the days of physical media are going to be gone soon. They're going to be gone soon, at least as far as purchasing your movies go. So everything's moving to digital streamings, and I think that's a good thing, to be honest. ZOMG Ruler writes, remember the film Spring Breakers? Pretty bad? Well, I mean, the thing about Spring Breakers is with James Franco, it has some great elements to it. It really does. And it's one of those movies where a lot of people really like it and really appreciate it, and there's a bunch of people that don't. There's a bunch of people that think it's kind of crap. I'm kind of in the middle on it. I think it's okay. I think there's some very stupid stuff in it, but I think there's some really cool elements in it as well. I feel the same way about Watchmen. You know, Watchmen is a movie that, like, everybody either loves or they hate. And I'm one of those few people that's really kind of down the middle. I think there's bad things about it, yes, but I also think there's upside to it as well. I kind of feel the same way about Spring Breakers. Look, it was definitely showed us a side performance-wise of James Franco we had never seen before up to that point. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Let's see. Prolapsed Anus writes, follow-up on B99. Almost bailed after the first couple of episodes. I don't know what B99 is. But had friends nagging me to stick with it, got much better as it went on, and fell in love by episode 6 or 7. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what B99 is. Sorry about that, man. This sounds like it would have been a good topic, too. Mike Hill writes, hey, John, did you hear about the supposed cut scene from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, T-Rex versus Spinosaurus rematch? Is it true? I would love it. Honestly, I have not heard the rumor, and I have no idea if it would be true. It seems to me, though, that would be an expensive scene. If there really was a scene of a rematch between a T-Rex, and I don't know when that would have happened, but a T-Rex and the Spinosaurus, I don't know when it would have happened, but if you did, and it actually got made, I don't see how they could justify cutting it out. That would be an extremely complicated and expensive scene to make, that you would have gone through all your drafts of your script, all your storyboarding, all your everything, blah, 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 and that's a big, expensive thing to do. Look, again, I haven't read the report, and maybe if I read the report and the story, maybe I would believe it, but I haven't read it yet, so completely cold, without having read it, I have a hard time believing that's real. I mean, again, maybe once I read the report, I'd totally change my mind, but I have a hard time believing that's real because it seems like something that would have cut long before the actual shooting and creation of the scene, you know what I'm saying? So that's my thought on it at any rate. Zach Bartron writes, was watching a bunch of interviews from Blade Runner 2049, and my God, Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling are a great pair. They need to do more stuff together. I liked Blade Runner 2049 very much. I didn't think it was Harrison Ford's best performance, but you're right. The off-camera chemistry between Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling was pretty damn good. As a matter of fact, it's some of the best chemistry, off-camera chemistry I've ever seen Harrison Ford have with anybody. For some reason, him and Gosling seemed to click, and it worked. I don't think they had the best chemistry on screen together, per se, so I'm not chomping at the bit to see the two of them do more movies together, but off-camera, I'll go out on a limb and say you very, very rarely see Harrison Ford have great off-camera chemistry with somebody, and he seems to have had it with Ryan Gosling, so that was really interesting for sure. All right, Chris Warden writes, another UFC pay-per-view this Saturday, and yet another main event title fight canceled due to poor weight cutting. Hashtag the new norm. Well, to be honest, I'm not sure. What he's talking about is there was, I think it was the flyweight women's title that was going to be on the line tomorrow night, and that fight's now canceled. But I don't know if it's because she failed to make weight. All I know is that she never even came out to weigh in. She was like medically, like doctors prevented her or something like that. Now, whether that was a result of the weight cutting or something else, I don't know yet. I will say this, though. I have made this argument before, and I've yet to hear a good counter-argument to this. Weigh-ins should happen the day of the fight. And then people, whenever I say that, people rush to me and say, but John, then they're going to be too weak because they just cut like 15 pounds in 24 hours to make weight. They're going to be too weak. They need the extra 25. No, you're missing the point. The point is, fighters should fight at their actual weight. Fighters should fight at the weight they walk around in. If you weigh 225 pounds, you should fight at 225 pounds. If you walk around at 175, you shouldn't come in and fight at 155. To me, the notion that weigh-ins should happen the morning of the fights, it ensures that these fighters are not doing these unhealthy, dangerous weight cuts that often screw up entire cards, but rather it ensures and it forces the fighters to fight at the weight they actually are. You're going to have healthier fighters. You're going to have fighters with more energy because they're not trying to recover from a fast 24-hour, 30-pound weight cut. You're going to have healthier fighters with more energy in the ring, and you're going to have fewer cards that get scrapped or upended because of missed weight cuts. There is no downside, none. I know we're going off on MMA here, but there is no downside to making the weigh-ins the day of the fights, and there is nothing but upside. Tons of upside. Healthier fighters, more energized fighters make for more entertaining fights and fewer scrapped fights, or fights that were supposed to be title matches, but they're not title matches now because one of the guys missed the weight cut, so the title's not on the line, or this type of nonsense, or last minute guys having to back out because they have to go to the hospital because they dehydrated because of their weight cut and all this kind of nonsense. This bullshit's gotta stop. It's stupid. It's asinine. There is simply no legitimate reason to have weight cuts the day before the fights. There's no legitimate reason. And nothing but upside to doing the weigh-ins the day of the fight. Because that forces your fighter to fight at their natural weight. And if they want to try to game the system and do a quick 15-pound weight cut the day of the fight, well, good luck. You're going to get your ass handed to you then in your fight. And that's on you. You should have moved up a weight class and fought at your actual weight. Anyway, I could go off. I get angry at this whole issue, mostly because of the asinine responses I hear from people. You can't do that because blah, blah, blah. Actually, blah, blah, blah makes no sense. Nothing but upside. Anyway, that's just my thought on that. Let's see. Preston Walden writes, summer movie brain off. Oscar bait movies on. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we're now in that transitional period, right? We're transitioning from just the great popcorn fun movies into more of the deeper movies coming out now. But still a lot of fun movies to come. Still a lot of fun movies to come. We got Predator coming. Critics seem to like that movie. So yay, thumbs up. We got Aquaman coming. Hopefully Bumblebee. Remember, before you get too pessimistic about Bumblebee, don't forget, this one's directed by the guy who directed Kubo and the Two Strings. This ain't Michael Bay. This is the guy who directed Kubo and the Two Strings is doing this one. So there's reason to be optimistic for that. Peter Jackson producing Mortal Engines. There's reason to be optimistic for that. Mary Poppins, reason. Lots of fun films still to come, though. So don't think there's no more fun to come. All right, James Welsh writes, why is Tom Clancy listed as a producer on Jack Ryan? He's been dead since 2013. Well, I mean, that just might be part of the agreement of any Jack Ryan movie that ever gets produced. That could be a carryover from previous agreements. That Clancy gets producer credit on any movie that gets made on his properties. That makes sense. And then probably he'll get, like Tom Clancy's estate will probably then collect a fee for that, and there you go. So it's probably a result of previous agreements that were signed that Tom Clancy gets producer credit on any movies that get produced based on his material. It makes sense. Zach Bartron writes, favorite book to movie adaptation where the movie surpasses the book? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I honestly don't know off the top of my head. I mean, Return of the King might have even been better than the book. And the book's great, but the movie's one of the all-time greatest films ever made. Let's see. I don't know. Sorry, Zach. I'd have to sit down and make a list and think about it, and I just don't have time to do that right now. But it's an interesting question. It's an interesting topic. What about you guys? Do you guys have anything that are popping to mind about really good book-to-movie adaptations? Jump down to the comments section. Leave your thoughts there. All right. Michael Ginyard writes, hey John, what are your thoughts on Designated Survivor being saved by Netflix? Did you like the show? You know, as a matter of fact, I did like the show. I did. Now, I started watching it because I'm big into these political shows, and I really like Kiefer Sutherland, good Canadian kid playing President of the United States. I like the show. Season 2 was not as good as Season 1. Or should I say, what was it, 3 seasons? I can't remember. Anyway, the last season was not as good as the first season. Once the whole mystery got solved about how he came to be president, and once that whole thing, the show kind of, you could tell they changed writers, and they did. They changed writers on the show, and you can kind of tell because it lost its identity a little bit. But I was disappointed when I heard that it got canceled. And yeah, just like Lucifer, Netflix has come in and saved the day, and I'm pretty happy about it. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing this show because I did enjoy it. Not one of my favorite shows on TV by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a show I enjoy watching. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do moving forward. And thank you, Netflix, for saving another show that I watch. Nathan Oswald writes, do directors get more creative freedom when they are also a producer on a film or a TV show? Yeah, probably. Probably. Look, here's the thing. You never want... What you really should not want is a director to have unchecked power on a film. You never want a director to have complete unchecked power on a film. When you do, you get the Star Wars prequels. That's what you get. You know, when you go around even the greatest films of all time, like we were just talking about the Lord of the Rings films. Look at that. Listen to Peter Jackson talk about that. You know, the studio gave him a lot of leeway, but at the same time, there were times that the studio stepped in and said, we want this and this, and it's a collaborative effort. That's the thing. Movies are a collaborative art. And directors, I mean, while they are the most responsible for it, they need to have a little bit of that too. There needs to be checks and balances. Now, sometimes that saves a movie, sometimes that can hurt a movie, but overall it's the right way to go. Like my favorite, let's talk about my favorite all-time comic book film, right? Which is The Avengers. The first Avengers movie is my all-time favorite comic book movie. Joss Whedon. I sat in the Directors Guild of America listening to Joss Whedon on stage give a speech and talking about how he was so grateful for the collaboration of the people at Disney, and particularly the people at Marvel and Kevin Feige. And he said, you know, there were things I was going to do that they stopped me from doing. And we can yell and scream, that's interference! But no, it's collaboration. You know, Joss Whedon wanted to introduce Wasp. Joss Whedon was not going to have Widow. He wasn't going to have Scarlett Johansson or Black Widow in Avengers. Instead, he wanted to introduce Wasp in that one. And Feige was like, you know, I love what you're doing, Josh. This is great. I want to make sure you have all the freedom you can, but I'm going to step in here and say, no, we have plans for Black Widow. You need to have Black Widow in there. Now, we could stomp our feet and cry, that's the studio interfering. Well, but it worked, didn't it? It was the right move. You know, Widow's awesome in that, and now she's one of the most beloved MCU characters that everybody's screaming and crying for her to get her own standalone movie. I don't want a standalone Black Widow movie, but whatever. But everybody else is screaming for it. It was the right move. Collaboration's important. And a lot of times, you know, we only like to point at the times when studio interference causes a negative result, but we never hear about and we never talk about all the times when studios stepped in for certain things and it was the right decision. And those are the majority. And a lot of directors will talk about that. Like, that's why certain directors like working with certain studios and not so much the others. They like having collaboration like that. So, but yeah, when you're also a producer, you will have a little bit even more creative freedom and creative control, and that's good. Still other checks and balances, but yeah, if you're also a producer, you get a little bit more leeway. Royce Freeman writes, much like a jury of one's peers, should a movie studio, knowing something will make money, make something that is absolutely vile and morally corrupt? Sure. Yeah, I mean, I won't go see it, but look, the movie business is a movie business. If the audience says we want this and we'll go and support it and we'll buy tickets to it and go see it, then yeah, go ahead, make it. I won't go see it. And enough people say they won't go see it, then it won't make good business. But if it's guaranteed to make money, well, that must mean there's a lot of people that are interested in seeing it. But I mean, when you say absolute vile, morally corrupt, well, how much? Like, are you talking about a legit snuff film? Are you talking about actually murdering people on stage? Or are you talking about just the subject matter is distasteful? Like, what are we talking about? So it all depends on where you're drawing that line. It all depends on where you're drawing that line. If it's just that the subject matter is very distasteful, well then, but you know it's going to make money, well, go ahead and make it then. Art should push buttons. Art should push boundaries. Art should sometimes make us feel uncomfortable. But are you talking like ridiculously to an extreme? Like they're literally going to kill baby seals on screen? Like real baby seals and club them to death and murder people? Well, and then it depends on how extreme and how ridiculously far you want to go with the argument. If we're talking in a rational sense, like subject matter, then I'd say, yeah, go for it for subject matter. But, you know, even then there are limits. Nathan Oswald writes, my favorite Sheriff Budford T. Justice line, I'm going to barbecue your ass in molasses. He was so good in that role, man. I mean, really, and you know what? I'll be honest. I often just forgot about him. I honestly I just forgot about Gleason in that role. And now when I think about Smokey and the Bandit, I just think about Burt Reynolds. But like in the last like 24 hours, going back and watching a lot of clips of that, you realize, holy crap, you know what? Gleason was a freaking genius in those movies. Him and Burt Reynolds were so good. Just so great. But Gleason was just a genius in those movies, man. Vince Carter of Mars writes, do you think Doctor Strange will make an appearance in Captain Marvel to tell her and Fury about events of Infinity War and Avengers 4 ahead of time? You know, that is a growing theory. What has been stated online, and is a valid observation, I think it's a little too stretchy, but it's an observation nonetheless. Here's what I'm seeing spoken around a lot. That Doctor Strange, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Infinity War, as he's doing his, and he's gazing into the future, right? I believe he said, I'll have to double check this for sure, but I believe he said, I went into the future. I don't think he just said, I looked into the future. I think he went into the future. 14 million futures and whatever. So there's this theory going around that Doctor Strange actually went out into one possible future, the one that could ultimately lead to us winning. And that he may pop up in like, and part of that, he went into the past as well. And all that kind of, and stringing together, what are the series of events out of these 14 million possibilities that lead to us winning? And one of them may have included that he has to step into the past, talk to Fury, talk to Captain Marvel, set all this stuff up, yada, 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 and all that kind of nonsense, right? It's a stretch, but it's a valid theory. I'm going to go out on a limb, Vince Carter, and say I do not believe that's what's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see Doctor Strange in Captain Marvel, but because I believe it's at least a legit theory, I'm going to say I'm not going to be totally surprised if he does show up. Like, I don't think he will. If I had to put $5 on it, I'm saying he's not showing up, but I wouldn't bet $50 on it. I don't feel that comfortable with it. I think Kevin Feige has done crazier things, and it might happen. But again, if I had to put $5 on it, I'd say I don't think so. John Demoto writes, any more news on the Mulan live-action film? I think it'd do well critically and box office-wise after the success of Crazy Rich Asians. Well, I don't think there has anything to do with Crazy Rich Asians other than the fact that there are Asian characters. Come on, man. I mean, we don't say, oh, Lincoln, the Steven Spielberg period piece, is just the same movie as Hangover. Because it's about white Caucasian dudes, right? So there, you can compare the two movies. No, you can't. Just because characters are Asian in one and also happen to be Asian in another does not mean you can compare the two films. These are radically different movies whose success will have nothing to do with each other. So let's just do that right now. I also don't think we have nothing to base saying it'll do well critically. We don't know. We haven't seen anything from it. We have no idea if this movie's going to do well critically. And just to say it's going to do well critically, because another film that happened to feature Asian characters was done well enough that critics liked it, that does not mean critics are going to like another movie. You're suggesting that critics only like Crazy Rich Asians because it had Asian people in it. And that's not true. It's a good movie. I didn't love it, but I liked it. It's good. It's a good film. That's why it got positive reviews. It's not getting positive reviews because it has Asians in it. You know, anybody who wants to make that argument that, oh, any movie with a minority in the lead, the critics will just like, really? Proud Mary would like to have a chat with you. A Wrinkle in Time would love to have a chat with you right now. Movies led by minority performers that the critics panned and the critics hated. So again, John, your question makes the presumption that critics liked Crazy Rich Asians just because it has Asian characters. Therefore, it'll do well critically for Mulan, because that also has Asian critics, and that's erroneous thinking. That's erroneous thinking. My fingers are crossed it's going to do well critically. I mean, look, Disney is on a little bit of a hot streak. With the exception of a couple like the terrible Maleficent. I thought that movie was terrible. But Angelina Jolie was awesome in it, but it's not a very good movie. But look, they're on a roll. Their Cinderella movie, directed by the great Kenneth Branagh, was fabulous. Jungle Book, directed by Jon Favreau, fabulous. They're on a roll. So I've got my fingers crossed that it's going to be received well critically. We're just going to have to wait and see, though. As far as any more news, no, we're in that window of time right now, John, where we don't want any news. The movie's shooting. It's in production. Remember we talked about on the John Campea show a few weeks ago that they have started production on the movie. So right now we're in that window of time where no news is good news, right? Like we don't want to see, we're in that point right now that we don't want to see any headlines starting with live action Mulan, because 90% chance it's just bad news that's going to come after that, right? So we're kind of in that window right now, that eye of the storm, where no news is good news. We don't want to hear any news right now, because no news just means filming is chugging along, production is chugging along, they're making the film. So let's hope, fingers crossed, man. Let's together cross our fingers and sing Kumbaya, whatever it is we need to do, and hope we don't hear any news about Mulan, because no news is good news at this point. Let's see. Vince Carter of Mars writes, because Fury saw Hill dust in the post-credits scene and immediately knew to get to the pager and call in Captain Marvel. What's your question? Let me go back to the last thing you wrote. Going back to, does Captain America, does Doctor Strange have anything to do with that? I still don't think that adds to it. Look, it could just be, I mean, yeah, we could try to read into it and all that kind of stuff. It could just very simply be, which, by the way, there have been a number of times in the MCU movies where things done in the post-credit scenes are really not done with a lot of thought, and they just kind of forget about it later, right? I think we as film fans should resist the urge to look too much into, well, how come Fury called her now and not then? And where has this beeper? Has he always kept this beeper on him all the time? Is that like, is that what's going on here? Like, I just don't think we should get too wrapped up in that. There's a very big possibility here that that was just the way for them to go, hey folks, wink, Captain Marvel's coming. Like, it could just be that. I don't want to look too much into it. However, the theory you're proposing here, Vince, isn't absurd, right? You can look at it in a certain way where what you're proposing can fit in there, but it's only one of 100 different possibilities. So I don't think that adds to it myself. But again, Kevin Feige has done stranger things. So let's keep our eyes open on that. All right, Murray Reich writes, believe in throwing it out of the end zone, even if it means sacrificing the game. Just miss Julio. Are you talking about the Falcons and the Falcons-Eagles game the other night? I mean, I don't think it was on purpose, you know. I don't think it was on purpose, but I'm trying to remember. Like, I watched the ending of the game, but I don't have the clip in front of me right now. Murray follows up with, what horror franchise has the best scares? Ooh. Let's put it this way. All of the major horror franchises have great movies and horrible movies. There are horrible Nightmare on Elm Street movies. There are horrible Halloween movies. There are horrible Friday the 13th movies, blah, blah, blah. But which ones had the best scares? I mean, it's kind of a cheat because there's only 2 films in the series, I think, but that's The Descent. The Descent has, even the second one, which is nowhere near as good as the first one, but even the second one has some terrific scares. So I will go on a limb and say The Descent. I'll go on a limb and say The Descent. Roy L. writes, John, I'm a married man, but my mistress is AMC A-list. It's so awesome. Even if I'm going to see a terrible movie, it's covered for one price of month. You know what? Last night's a great example of that for me, dude. I went to go see I went to go see a double feature last night. Me and my buddy Soul. We went to go see The Nun, and we went to go see Peppermint. I was looking forward to both. I'll be honest, I was disappointed in both. And if you saw my show this morning, I did my reviews. It's on my website. It's on my YouTube channel right now. My reviews for The Nun and for Peppermint. Both of them have some positive things going for them, but both of them I don't necessarily recommend. To me, The Nun was a big step down for Annabelle creation. And Peppermint, while there is some really good action in it, and Jennifer Garner kicks all sorts of ass in it, they just make other mistakes throughout the movie that just at the end of it you go, this was not a very well constructed movie. Even though they did the action great, and Jennifer Garner is a legit action star. Jennifer Garner is a legit action star. I mean, and forget the rest of the movie that was built around her. She did the action great. And a lot of the action was very reminiscent of John Wick. It's not as good as John Wick. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it was very reminiscent of John Wick style action, and Garner pulled it off great. She really did. But at the end of the day, I was still kind of disappointed with it. But hey, it's A-list, so I can just walk into the theater, man, flash it like a badge, A-list, and just go on in, grab my seat. It's great. And you're right, man. I am addicted to my A-list. I am completely addicted to my A-list. $20 a month for 3 movies a week. Understanding, let me just do some quick math. The average ticket at my AMC Burbank 16 is $15. When I go into a Prime, it's like $20. So if I go to like 3 Prime movies, like 3 movies in AMC Prime or IMAX every week, and I see, hold a second, that's $240 in movie tickets that I'm getting for the grand price of $20. And even if I just go to the regular screens, like let's say I go to the $15, the regular theaters at where I go to the movies is $15 a ticket. That's not for an IMAX or an AMC Prime or 3D or anything. That's just for a regular movie. That's $180 a month right there. And even if I only go to half the movies I can go to, that's like that's close to $100 a month that I'm getting for $20. And I can book my tickets in advance, online, no service fees, blah, blah. It is great, man. I'm with you. It is basically, and Ann is a big fan of it too. So AMC is not my A-list. AMC is mine and Ann's threesome partner. I'll go ahead and say that. AMC A-list is mine and Ann's threesome partner at this point. And I'm really excited to see whatever it is Regal comes up with, because you know they're going to come out with a really good program too. Cineworld has a really good movie club deal. We're seeing some really good innovations happening right now, thanks to the program that Cineworld started almost 10 years ago over in the UK. All right. Daniel Briggs writes, where'd it go? There it is. Daniel Briggs writes, watched The Nun yesterday, then grew a brain and watched Searching today. I was floored by it, and me and my friend can't stop talking about it. Again, Daniel, you are yet another. I was trying to figure out a way to do a triple screening last night, because we saw The Nun, we saw Peppermint, and I wanted to try to squeeze in Searching as well, but just didn't have time. But again, everybody, now your name gets added to the list. Everybody I'm talking to is saying Searching is one of the best movies of the year. Without fail, I have not talked to a single person that has seen this movie who has failed to say, or who hasn't said, it's one of the best movies of the year. So, which is great because the trailers were awful. The trailers were straight up ass. Did nothing to get anybody interested in it. It's all word of mouth that's fueling it now. And thank goodness, because that, if it was relying on the trailers, nobody would have gone to see this movie. All right, Izzy Alonso writes, we say movies are subjective, but isn't a bad script a bad script? Nope. Isn't horrible actors horrible acting? Nope. All I'm saying is I believe in a way we can call a bad movie bad based on acting, dialogue, etc. Again, nope. Because here's the thing. Let's talk about the difference between what is objective and what is subjective, okay? What is objective? Well, we can say that this air conditioner remote control is, I'm just taking a wild guess here. I don't know, let's call that 5 inches. All right, let's call that 5 inches. It might not be its guess. Now, I can objectively say whether this remote is 5 inches or not because there is an objective, measurable, quantifiable data we can apply to it to see if it is. I can pull out a measuring tape. And with quantifiable units of measurement, I can measure and say, this thing is exactly 5.2 inches long. That's not up for debate. That can't be questioned. It was quantifiably and objectively measured. You can't debate it. It is 5.2 inches long. I mean, I don't know if it is because I don't have a tape measure right here. But if I did, there you go. I can tell you objectively how fast I can run. Because I can run 100 meters and there is a quantifiable, measurable way to see how fast I run it. It's called a stopwatch with units of measurement, seconds, that will objectively measure how fast I can run from here to the finish line. That is objective. And if I run it in, 14.1 seconds, it's not great, but 14.1 seconds, okay? I can't deny it. That's what it is. We timed it with measurable units of measure, quantifiably measured it, so that it's not up for debate. You can't debate whether I ran that in 14.1 seconds. You can't have an opinion about it. It was measured. It's objective. It's solid. It is beyond dispute because it was measured quantifiably. What measurement do you use to quantifiably determine if a script is good or if a script is bad? The answer? There is none. There is no unit of quantifiable measurement you can apply to a script. There's not. Therefore, whatever opinion you have about a script is up for debate. It's up for debate. Why? Because unlike the length of this remote control, unlike how fast it took me to run that 100-meter dash, unlike those things which are objective, there is no quantifiable unit of measurement to say whether or not a script is good or a script is bad. And whenever you have anything that cannot be quantifiably verified in its data, it is by nature and by definition subjective. As long as it's up for debate, it is subjective. I can say 5 plus 5 equals 10, and we can pull out calculators and scientific methods to prove that 5 plus 5 equals 10. You can't debate it. There's no arguing it. That is what it is. Water boils under normal conditions. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. That's not up for debate. That's not something we can have a discussion about. It is what it is. 100 degrees, water boils under normal circumstances. Right? That's scientifically quantifiable units of measurement. Somebody does a bad acting job. Okay, you thought it was a bad acting job. I thought it was a bad acting job. But by what unit of quantifiable measurement can we indisputably say that? You can't. It is therefore up for debate. And as long as something is up for debate and cannot be quantifiably measured, it is subjective. It is therefore folly to try to suggest anything about movies other than their length is objective. Movies are art. They do not have units of measurement that we can prove objectively whether something good is bad. It is always up for debate, and therefore it is pure folly to try to suggest anything about movies is objective. They're not. Other than the runtime, which can be measured, nothing about movies can be measured. You can't measure the quality of a joke. You can't measure the effectiveness of a piece of CG. You can't measure the quality of an acting performance. All you've got is subjective opinion about it. That's all you got. That's it. So no, you cannot say a script is objectively bad. You cannot say a performance is objectively bad. You can have your opinion about it, and I can have my opinion about it, and I can say that person's performance was terrible. But I can't say that that's objectively true because I don't have a quantifiable unit of measurement to scientifically apply to the performance to say, there we go. The science is now in it. Yes, it was a bad performance. There's nothing that does that. Therefore, it's foolish and folly to try to suggest anything about movies by the pure definition of objective and subjective. You cannot say anything about movies other than the runtime is objective. It's just can't be done. All right. Roy L. writes, my favorite Burt Reynolds movie is called Switching Channels with Christopher Reeve and Kathleen Turner. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that in what was that, like 1982? Hold on a second, let me pull that up. Switching Channels. Oh my god, I haven't seen that in I hadn't even thought about it. I can totally see, oh, it was way up. It's 1988 is when it came out. I can still see the poster in my head though, and there it is. Oh my god, and Christopher Reeve was like the suit-wearing preppy. Anyway, I haven't seen that movie in forever. I haven't even thought about that movie in forever. I do remember not thinking it was all that great, personally. But hey, Roy, for you, it was great. Listen, a lot of people hated The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. It is one of my, other than Deliverance probably, it is one of my favorite Burt Reynolds movies. But not a lot of other people like it. But that's fine. It's still one of my favorite Burt Reynolds movies. And I gotta admit, it's been a long time since I've seen Switching Channels. But I don't recall it being that good. But who cares what I, you saw it, it's one of your favorites. That's awesome. That's all you need to do. All right. Nathan Oswald writes, what happened with Hocus Pocus 2? Was there supposed to be a Hocus Pocus 2? I don't recall there ever really being any real movement on a Hocus Pocus 2. Hold on a second. Okay, so last year, there was a report that a Hocus Pocus 2 may happen. But it wasn't going to happen as a true sequel. There was supposed to be a reimagining of the 1993 in the works. But that never actually ever got to greenlight stage or anything like that. There was a report, I remember at one point, that Tina Fey was working on a sequel, but that was debunked. So that wasn't coming about. So there was looks at a reimagining of Hocus Pocus, but as far as I know, that never actually made it to a greenlight stage, so it was never actually happening at any point. So it's like many other projects in Hollywood. You know, something gets started, they look at doing it, but it never gets to that greenlight stage. And that's a movie, as far as I know, that never got to the greenlight stage. Look, it may still be alive in some way, shape, or form, somewhere percolating on some executive's desk. But it looks like it never actually got around or got even really close to actually happening. All right, let's move on here. Mike Hill writes, have you ever played Tekken 2? It's my all-time favorite. Or have you played Tekken? Yeah, I played Tekken a long time ago, though, man. I mean, I was more of a Street Fighter guy. I remember that you had Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, and all that kind of stuff. Tekken was great. You know what? I love the voices and the sounds in Tekken more than any of the other fighter games at the time. But yeah, I was more of a Street Fighter guy, but I really enjoyed Tekken. I did. All right. Nathan Oswald writes, where are we here? Jim Carrey was busy in 1994. Dumb and Dumber, Mask, 8. Oh, yeah, he was like, for a brief window of time, Jim Carrey was like the hottest movie star. He was like the hottest movie star. And there were some great stories about, like, there was one studio that didn't think he was going to be that big of a breakout star, and then it came back to bite them in the ass and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love all these movies. Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, at least the original one. Did that come away? Did that come out in the same year? Hold a second. Hey, Google, what year did Ace Ventura, Pet Detective come out? Let's see what Google says.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective was released in the United States of America
Okay.
February 4th, 1994.
Oh, no, it was 1994. Look at that. Like, I don't remember them coming out. Let me just double check. Hey, Google, what year did Dumb and Dumber release? I love my Google Home.
States of America on December 6th, 1994.
Yeah, look at that. I don't even remember them being out in the same year. You're right. There was a window of time there where Jim Carrey was the hottest actor in the world. And we're seeing a little bit of a Jim Carrey resurgence right now, which I hope he does, because I think he's tremendously talented. Brian Snook writes, Scooby Natural 2 Mystery Inc. Gang coming to live action. Prince Jr., Geller, Illard, Kelly, please reprise their roles. Yes. Wait a minute. Is that true? Like, I remember hearing talks that they were going to do it. Hold a second. Scooby Natural 2. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything about it. So I don't know if you're just suggesting that they do something like that. I don't know if you're just suggesting or if there was actually an announcement about that they're going to try to do in live action. If so, it wouldn't make any sense to bring in the live action people. Although, you know, I'm a big fan of Freddy, so I would love to see him on anything. But I don't think it would make sense to go to the live action thing. But I don't know. Maybe you heard a news story that I missed somehow. I'm a big Supernatural fan. That doesn't mean I always catch all the Supernatural news, so I don't know. Marie Seafring writes, have you heard... Oh, I had the big jump. Hold a second. La, 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 la. Oh, wow, there are a lot of questions. Okay, here we go. Marie Seafring writes, have you heard anything about S.J. Clarkson possibly being named as the first female director of a Bond film now that Danny Boyle has left the project? No, I have not. I haven't heard anything about that. I did hear that there was a female director they were looking at, but you know, Edgar Wright is in that mix. There were a few other names in that mix as well, so I haven't heard anything about that. And I'll be honest with you, the name S.J. Clarkson doesn't pop to my mind. I don't know her off the top of my head. So let me just say here. S.J. Clarkson. Okay, let's see here. S.J. Clarkson is a British film director who directed some episodes of The Defenders, some episodes of Jessica Mars, some episodes of Orange is the New Black. So she's mainly a television director, and apparently looks like she's done some interesting stuff on television. She even directed some Dexter back in the day. She directed a couple episodes of Heroes, one of my all-time favorite shows. Yeah, looks like she's mostly a television... No, I haven't heard that name. Clearly, she's got experience doing high-profile stuff, so that wouldn't be a bad name. I would still lean more towards an Edgar Wright, personally, but that is interesting. No, I haven't heard anything on that definitively, Marie, but I'm going to keep my eye open for it now. History Soup writes, don't watch Schindler's List if manic depressed. Oh, dude, seriously, Schindler's List, one of the all-time greatest movies ever made. I can't watch it. I've watched it once. Somebody told me that I saw it a second time, and I don't remember seeing it a second time, but whatever. At most, I saw it twice. At most, I saw it twice. It is brilliant, amazing, beyond description, but I can't watch it again. It's just one of those films, I just can't watch it again. Because it's heavy. Like, you know what another movie like that I saw recently that's like? Detroit. Watching Detroit, and it's just one of those movies where I think it's great. I thought it was a very, very well done movie. The performances in it are great. But I can't bring myself to watch it again, you know? And Schindler's List is just one of those films. It's just hard on the soul, you know what I mean? And that's amazing. It's a powerful film. It moves you emotionally, but there are a couple of films that are like that I just have a hard time watching again, manic depressed or not. But, you know, somebody brought up Boy in the Striped Pajamas the other day. Like, oh, somebody brought up the ending of Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And the ending is just one of the reasons why I can't watch that film again. It's a great movie, but I can't watch that movie again, man. I cannot subject myself to watching that movie again. It's just too hard. It's a great, masterful movie, but just too hard. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, thoughts on Down to Earth with Chris Rock. Don't think I've ever watched it, man, to be honest with you. Change023 writes, John, love the show. Thank you so much. In an old interview, Manu Bennett said when they looked for a new Spartacus, Stephen Amell read for the role. Did you know this? Yes. And actually, Stephen came very, very close. I believe he was the runner-up to, what was the kid's name who got the role? McIntyre or something like that? I forget. Hold on a second. I got to look it up now. Let's see if I can find it here. Hold on a second. Spartacus, War of the Damned. Right. So the guy who came in and took over for Andy was Liam McIntyre. That's who came in and took over for Andy. So, Stephen Amell came into my studio once when I was still doing Arrow After Shows, and he actually came into studio to do an after show episode with us. He was awesome on that, by the way. He was like very real, very forthcoming. He was great. Like one of the best pure interviews I've ever had the pleasure of doing. He was fabulous. But beforehand, as we were sitting around chatting, Spartacus came up, mentioned it was a big show, and he mentioned that, yeah, like he actually thought he was going to get the role. He thought he was going to get the role. Like it was really, really close. And they ended up going with Liam. And Liam did a fine job. I never bought into him as Spartacus, to be honest with you. I still like the seasons he's in, but I just never bought into him. I mean, after the tragedy of losing Andy, it was terrible. But it all worked out for the best because had Stephen gotten that role, he probably wouldn't have gotten Arrow. And I love him in Arrow. Sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of the show, but Stephen Amell is great in the role. So it all worked out the way it was supposed to. It all worked out the way it was supposed to. Yes, so anyway, next up. Eddie Burton writes, any thoughts on the Scorsese Irishman films? Skepticism. I have skepticism for it. Look, it's whenever you have one of the all-time greatest directors like a Martin Scorsese, there's reasons for optimism. But again, there's a reason all the studios took a pass on it. Nobody wanted to finance this film or put their money behind it. That's a red flag. Now, maybe it was a great script, but they just saw that no one's going to go watch this movie. You can have a great script and just can't possibly see a way to market it, and you just don't think people... Because look, there have been lots of great movies that people don't go out to watch, right? Maybe the studios just thought that was the case. But whatever it is, there's a reason all the studios passed on it. And so I am skeptical. And every Netflix movie I've seen, with a few very good exceptions, have pretty much been crap. So until I see it, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because it's Scorsese, until I see it, I'm going to remain skeptical about The Irishman, and hopefully it turns out to be awesome. John Early writes, thoughts on Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile? Well, Green Mile's great. Green Mile's great. Shawshank Redemption is in my top 10 films of all time. It always is. Always has been since the day I saw it. It is the film that should have won Best Picture in its year. It lost to Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is great. But now today, with the, we have the benefit of hindsight now. Today, when you look at a lot of film critics and film people's top, 50 films of all time list, Shawshank Redemption is almost always on top of and over Forrest Gump. Shawshank Redemption is simply one of the greatest masterpieces in cinematic history. It's all subjective, of course, but in my opinion, it is one of the single greatest masterpieces in the history of cinema. It's just that good. And has always been and will forever be in my top 10 greatest films of all time list. So yeah, absolutely. Krieger119 writes, I'm French-Canadian, so disappointing. It is one of the characters in the Nun is a French-Canadian character, but they had to be because you see there's a little bit of a tie-in to the other films. They get to that a little bit later, but yeah, I was disappointed. I was disappointed, Krieger. Krieger follows that up with, maybe in the minority, but I did enjoy Peppermint. And look, hey, look, there are things to enjoy about Peppermint, for sure. Actually, the guy I went with, Soul, my buddy, he actually really liked it. He had a really good time with it. And even though I was overall disappointed with the film, there are absolutely elements that I thought were very good. Mainly revolving around the action and Jennifer Garner herself, who just kicked ass in that movie. Just absolutely kicked ass. So, unfortunately, I thought the bad things about the movie outweighed the good things, but there are definitely things in that movie I think are worth appreciating. And I'm not surprised that you liked it, and I think there's going to be a bunch of people that like it, as a matter of fact. Prolapsed Anus writes, love that name, B99 equals Brooklyn 99. Sorry for confusion. Yeah. Guys, whenever you put in abbreviations, you're running a really big risk. I'm not going to know what you're talking about. I cannot remember what your question was now about Brooklyn 99. I can't remember what the question was. Sorry, dude. I can't remember what the question was. I remember, but I can't remember what the actual thing of the question was. Sorry about that, Prolapse, man. Sorry about that, dude. Ivan Pito writes, Preto. I'm sure I'm butchering your name, Ivan. Sorry about that. I butcher everybody's names. Man of Steel 2, Captain America 4, or Spider-Man 4 with Toby, if he was in his 30s still. You can only have one. Go. Oh, Man of Steel 2. That's easy. Man of Steel 2. Yeah, Man of Steel 2. Look, I really, really want Captain America 4. I'll be honest with you, I actually think I'm a little bit more of a fan of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man than I am of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Although I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Don't take that as a knock on Tobey Maguire, not in the least. I just think I even liked, I think I liked Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man even a little bit more. But yeah, out of that list, I'm going Man of Steel 2. I love that movie, man. But obviously I'd love to have a Captain America 4, for sure, obviously. But Man of Steel 2. Ivan follows up with, I have always been curious, what letter grade would you give each of the DCU films? For me, Man of Steel B, Batman vs. Superman B-, Suicide Squad C+, Wonder Woman A-, and Justice League B+. I do not give graded scores anymore. I don't give graded scores for a reason. Because, you know, I talk about thousands of movies, right? And then what happens is gutless cowards who don't have any skin in the game, they'll go back and say, wait a minute, you gave this one movie a 71, but you only gave that other movie a 70. You're saying that other movie's better than this one. For your opinion is, it's like, you know, I just got sick and tired of it. I just got sick and tired of it. So, and on top of that, and even more importantly, like a 7 out of 10 means something different to everybody. Like, to me, it should be pretty common sense. A 7 out of 10 means a good, solid movie. You're only 3 points away from perfect. And by the way, too many people, we live in a 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 society. If people even remotely like a movie, they give it a 10. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. If they even remotely don't like a movie, oh, it sucks. 0, 0, 0. Everything's a 0 or 10 to the brain dead, a lot of the people out there. So, like, you give a 7 out of 10 to something, that's me saying this was a good, solid movie. And inevitably I get, oh, Campea hated it. He only gave it a 7. No, I really liked it. Well, why didn't you give it a 10? Because it wasn't a 10. Well, if you liked it, you would have given it a 10. No. So there was just no, I found there was just no point in giving graded scores to anything anymore. So, yeah, so Ivan, I don't give graded scores to anything. All I can say is that I love Man of Steel. Batman vs. Superman I enjoyed. Suicide Squad was a hot mess, but I still had a good time with. Wonder Woman was really good. And Justice League I enjoyed. Actually, I really enjoyed. I'm not going to say I loved it, but I really enjoyed it. Saw it like 7 times in theaters. I mean, something ridiculous like that. But yeah, I don't give lettered scores to anything. Sergio C. writes, how about a Bonanza movie? Yeah, interesting. Charlie Tatum can play Adam, Seth Rogen as Hoss, Dave Franco as Little Joe, and Tom Selleck as Ben Cartwright. Here's the... Look, I actually like the idea of Sergio. I like the idea a lot. The one knock against it is Bonanza is so old... I don't know that you'd be getting any of that. I don't know that you'd be getting any nostalgia benefit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that you're going to get the benefit of nostalgia to help with the marketing of your film because it's so old. Like, I don't even know if my parents watched it. I think it might be something my grandparents would have watched. You know what I mean? So, let's just say this. I'd be down for it. Because growing up, I watched all the Bonanza reruns. Like, I watched the Bonanza reruns. And Lorne Greene, Admiral Adama himself. Anyway, I'd be down for it. But I just don't know that it brings any recognition along with it to give it that impetus. But hey, look, even if they announced they were doing it, I'd be all for it. All right, last question of the day, guys. Then I got to run. I got meetings I got to get to. Double McShave, I love that name, writes, Stallone's Demolition Man had different product placement and restaurant scenes for USA and Europe. Oh, that's interesting. USA, Taco Bell, in Europe, Pizza Hut. Was this common? I'll be honest with you, Stubble, I never knew that. This is the great thing about the fan film community, man. I'm learning something from every day from fellow film fans. I never knew that. I find that fascinating. I find that absolutely fascinating. So I can't say. I honestly can't answer the question about whether that is common or not. I mean, it seems to make sense because you can make money in different markets in different ways. So I get that, but I'm not familiar with the practice. But now I'm going to look for that. Because that's a really cool little factoid. If what you're saying is true, that's a really cool little factoid. All right, guys, that's over an hour for me. That will do it for me, guys, for today's installment of Open Mic. Looks like the stream lasted all the way through. Yay! Thanks a lot for joining me, guys. It is now the weekend. I've got a whole bunch of companion videos coming this weekend, and so I noticed that there are still questions that we didn't have time to get around to. Sebastian and Gabriel and all the way down. If you sent in a question that we didn't have time to get to, don't worry about it. I'm going to gather up these questions. I'm going to add them to the list, and they will be addressed in a companion video coming this weekend. So I'm going to do a couple of companion videos. We'll get all cut up on the outstanding questions. So don't worry, that is coming. All right, that will do it for me for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, it's the weekend. Enjoy yourself. Have some fun. Hang out with friends. Play that Spider-Man game. Go see Searching. Watch, Avengers Infinity War at home again. Whatever it is, make sure it's something that you're going to have fun doing, that you're going to enjoy, and get rested up and relaxed for the start of a new week on Monday when I'll be back. So that'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.